not quite that ready. Okay, I'll do it again, just for the record. I'd like to call this District of Clearwater regular council meeting to order for Tuesday, October 7th, 2025 at 2-ish with a few technical difficulties. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional territory of the Simpcw people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial, and a reminder that I need to write a new one of these. Are there any late items that we are going to add to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Mover and a seconder. Councillor Bratton, Councillor Frizzle, all those in favor. Any declaration of no conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? Okay. And then moving on to Director Zhao, do you want to say anything at this one? Come on down.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the time to address the Council. Just want to give you an update from the TNRD trip to UBCM, as I saw many of you there. We raised issues surrounding small community water system funding, as we have in the past 3 years to Ministry of Municipal Affairs. We've raised issues about highway safety to assistant commissioners to the RCMP. And we also had, we took part in the Ministry of Infrastructure meeting regarding the Kamloops Cancer Center, which thank you to Vice Chair Blackwell and also Chair O'Reilly at the hospital board for advocating for our PET-CT scanners. Unfortunately, and I think from what I heard from others at the conference, it's just a simple reflection of the provincial financials that we're not getting a lot of confirmation on supports, but we'll keep at it. I want to give a shout out to Councillor McKenzie for reaching out and letting me know about the rail crossing work being done in Vavenby, so I was able to, connect them with TNRD Fire Department. And also just an update, I'm sure Councillor Bratton as well, for your work on the MRDT with Tourism Wells Grade right now, that we agree that, things are moving forward smoothly. There was the executive director showed us a very simple checklist from the province, and we're just going through the steps. So it looks promising right now that the 3% would be approved. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to item 7, delegations. First up is Interior Health. And Karen Cooper and, Dr. Kara is there. Did we have Karen Cooper online? I thought we were going to have... I will take this salary. I am going to be completely useless that I can't put a Band-Aid on, but whenever you're ready, go right ahead and tell us what's going on. I will leave that to Mr. Prime to answer that technical question.
Yes, thank you. If you're able to share the slides, that will work the smoothest. Thank you.
For 4.5 years now, a full-service rural physician for 6 years, and currently serving as Chief of Staff of Dr. Hopkin Memorial.
So thank you. I know that you've done a land acknowledgement. I'll just also acknowledge Interior Health likes to acknowledge all of its 7 nations on who our work sites are situated. So in addition to the Secwepemc Nation, where I'm calling in from Kamloops today, we have the Dekel Dene, the Tanaha, Inkaklepem, Statlium, Silks, and Silkatine nations where we live, learn, and today collaborate about a concept and proposed model. So that's exactly why Kara and I are here. We're wanting to talk today and really put forward a different way of thinking about our emergency rooms. And so I'm just, because I'm sharing, I got to get my speaker notes in front of me. One of the things that we share as a goal is maintaining reliable access to emergency service for anyone in our interior region, no matter where we live. The reality, and this community experienced it last night, that 24/7 emergency services in rural and remote communities is getting increasingly difficult using our old model of care. The existing model is no longer optimal for the population that we serve. And we're seeing that both in our workforce as well as with the population that we're serving. We're seeing more primary care needs for their chronic conditions. And at the same time, Clearwater is competing with staff across the nation to be able to entice folks to move and live into our communities. So as we look to the future, we want to reimagine the model of care to make sure that it continues to serve rural communities for years to come. And one of the things we consistently hear is that we need models to help our physicians achieve work-life balance and make rural healthcare more attractive. Being on call 1 in every 2 or 3 nights versus hopefully where we're going with the after hours and overnight on-call burden is to reduce that in our new model. So in the next few slides, we'll share a concept idea with you. But really, this is about listening to your thoughts and concerns and other considerations as we move forward with our planning. So we know that healthcare is a high demand profession. And as I mentioned earlier, staffing shortages continue to be a universal challenge. This is especially poignant in our rural sites where our emergency services are what we like to say, one sneeze away from being interrupted. And as we pulled the data in preparation for this project, we know that 2/3 of our service interruptions in interior health were due to physician shortages. So the solutions you see on the screen were born of a necessity to try and address these challenges. And I know that Clearwater has certainly been a net receiver of internationally trained physicians through the Practice Ready Assessment Program, as well as the UBC International Medical Grad Program. The other thing that we've seen success with, though, is incorporating virtual care into our hospitals in order to augment our in-person and existing services. 2 such examples that you see on the screen are the Virtual Emergency Room Rural Assistant, or VERA program, which is an overnight virtual coverage model, currently mostly in the cusp at Arrow Lakes Hospital, where they've been using it 2 nights a week in order to really give those physicians a break from the after hours call. As well, one of the other sites that I support was the first of its kind in BC to incorporate virtual support in an inpatient acute medical setting as a way of keeping patients admitted local to home. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Perdue to walk you through what we're pondering.
Yeah, so what are we actually looking at doing with this proposed model? So what we're looking at is, instead of relying on one in-person emergency physician for an overnight shift at every emergency department, we're exploring a hybrid team approach. This model would rely heavily on our specialty trained ED nurses, and we know that that's part of our stumbling block for closures. But we would need those nurses who can perform their skilled assessments before speaking to the virtual physician. We would have consistent use of technology that allows better patient care virtually, and also have an on-call doctor present in every community that can come in for the more complex cases that do need an in-person assessment. Under this proposed model, an emergency physician would be physically present at one rural hospital, providing overnight emergency coverage on site there, and also providing virtual coverage for up to 3 other emergency departments. If the virtual ED physician feels that in-person physician services are needed for a patient, that's when the local on-call physician in the community would then be called in to provide the patient with the care that they need. When a patient comes into the ED, they would continue to see an in-person nurse who will assess their condition and determine the level of care needed, just as they do currently. But then this proposed model would allow patients to see the virtual physician for the mild and less urgent cases, which is the majority of cases that we see at these pilot sites for the rural program. And again, there would be that in-person physician in the community on call for the critical life-threatening cases. The patients accessing this care would not need any training or technical knowledge on how to use virtual care. And based on the previous use of virtual care in our hospitals, Interior Health anticipates minimal differences in patient experiences. Next slide. So what we're looking at is trying to develop a model that will help our small rural sites support each other for sustaining overnight care. And this model is looking at 4 specific sites to work together, which would be Lillooet Hospital, Dr. Helmkin Memorial in Clearwater, Arrow Lakes Hospital in Nakusp, and Princeton General Hospital. The reason we're looking at these specific sites is that they're similar in size, similar in ED volumes, similar in the number of overnight visits. When we think about a model that would help sites support each other, these are the hospitals that have those criteria to be able to pilot this. When we look at the summary data from August 2024 to August 2025, we've got very comparable numbers of total overnight visits, daily overnight average over a year. We know that rural physicians in these communities wear a lot of hats. We're providing ER care, we're working in the primary care clinic, long-term care homes, providing inpatient services, supporting home health, and many of us also supporting some of our tertiary centers for maternity and keeping those doors open. When you add up all those responsibilities, overnight on-call shifts often disrupt sleep and can lead to further burnout, fatigue, and long-term impacts on health and personal life. When we can't find local coverage for these EDs, we're looking to the provincial and even national pools of locum physicians, which are incredibly competitive and don't guarantee coverage. It is hard to find locums these days, and everywhere is competing for the same locums. When we're looking at kind of proposing this model and the safety of it for patients, we looked at the number of visits and the different what's called CTAS levels, so Canadian Triage Acuity Level. Level 1, the lowest number, is the most urgent, needs immediate in-person care. Their life or their limb is threatened. And the higher numbers, the 5, are much less urgent, would be able to be managed easily virtually, sometimes even by nursing, and would be very amenable to these virtual coverage. When we look through the trends of what type of visits we're seeing overnight, we are seeing quite consistently that more than 40% of the patient visits are lower on the urgency scale. Things like mild abdominal pain with normal vital signs, moderate headaches. When the patients go to the ER, they're triaged by the nurse to determine where on this scale they sit. The more urgent the case, the sooner they're seen. The less urgent the case, they may have to wait longer if there's people of higher acuity there. Because we're seeing that overnight in these different sites, the majority of cases can be managed as urgent or less urgent. That's where this model comes in, saying they can be managed without necessarily needing a physician hands-on, but we have that backup physician on call for those cases. Next slide. So when we look back at this proposed model, we anticipate again that most of the patient needs from urgent to non-urgent can be met through the in-person nursing care with the virtual doctor support. We would have the in-person community physician on backup for those more critical cases, but this would allow a much greater work-life balance for the physicians. Would help us maintain access to our local emergency care while supporting our limited pool of providers. We're really hoping that this will make keeping the doors open at our rural EDs more attractive for both retention and for recruitment. For the physicians, it would be less interruptions in the middle of the night, helping us to consolidate multiple low volume shifts into one focused shift where You plan that you'll be working hard, but knowing that you then may not have to be the one on call for, a week or more after that. It also gives us the chance for gaining diverse clinical experiences, more flexibility to prioritize our other professional and personal commitments, including time in the primary care clinic, which is where we see a lot of our current ED visits coming from, is that lack of access to primary care. For our nurses, it means that they have an additional level of team-based support overnight, hopefully leading to higher job satisfaction. And they don't have to worry about, is this worth waking the doctor up for when they're expected to be in clinic the next day?
Thanks, Dr. Purdue. So in a nutshell, it's interesting. One of the NACUSP physicians just wrote back today and said, I'll sign up for anything that lets me be on call overnight 1 in 24. There are 24 physicians between the 4 sites versus the amount that they're doing now. And given the low volumes and then the disruption to their primary care clinic the next day, this model really does take that. I like the word that you used, Dr. Purdue, the team approach. So now you're working with the other 3 communities in a team-like environment to provide the coverage to maintain access to the EDs. Before we move to discussion, I'll just touch on the one point around this is only the half of the resource issue, the other half being our nurses. And what I'll reassure Council and Mayor is that we are moving in these 4 sites to a 2-nurse model overnight to be able to ensure that working with the virtual physician, being able to call in the in-person backup as needed, and to have that decision support and coordination, needing the extra body for that to further improve our ability to remain open. And so with that, I will just leave this slide up either to guide the discussion, or I'm happy to take it down, go back to a gallery view. But in the conclusion, it really is. We want to hear from you of what you think of this proposed model. And as we move through our consultation process, what challenges do you foresee or opportunities that this model entails?
I'd prefer, thank you for going back to gallery view so we can see people. Thank you for that, and thank you for the call earlier today, Karen. So I have a couple questions, and I'm quite sure there's going to be more in the room. I was inquiring with you earlier today about accommodation for locums and nurses coming in, and I think you said you were working on something on that.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Yes, we recognize to move to a 2-nurse model 24 hours a day. We're going to need to bring in what we refer to as our external workforce, so that therefore we know we need to ensure that we have accommodation for those folks. And so we are working with our leasing team to secure additional properties in Clearwater to be able to support that piece of solving this.
Okay, and my actual question on this presentation here is, at what point does the on-site RN / off-site virtual doctor make the call to bring in the local doctor? Did that patient need to be on site before they do that? Could it be made a call from the ambulance crew making an assessment in the field that a doctor is going to be needed? How's that going to work?
Yeah, great question. Dr. Purdue, I see you're ready to answer.
Yes, so it'd be very similar to what we do currently, where it's largely based on nursing discretion and their training and skills. So, for example, when we get a call from ambulance that they're bringing a trauma in, the nurse will review the mechanism, the patient's vital signs, the handover that they're getting from our EMS team, and based on that would say, is this someone I can assess, get things started on, and then call a physician, or do I need to call a physician right away? And it would still ultimately be at the nurse's discretion. So these are very skilled providers who are working as ED nurses. If they feel that, no, I do not feel comfortable waiting to see this person before I call the physician, or see this person walk in and say they absolutely need in-person hands-on right now, they will have full autonomy to call in the on-call physician. This was actually a question that I asked when we were going through the model. The NACUSP site uses the Vera model quite frequently, the virtual overnight coverage. And the doctor we were speaking with who provides that coverage has never needed to call in one of the physicians there. And I don't believe their nurses have either.
Thank you. I'm assuming other questions. Go ahead, Councillor Bratton.
Hi, thank you for your report presentation. I'm curious, how many nurses currently are on shift overnight? So RN, LPN, is it one of each or one or?
It's actually, there's a different coverage model. So for the emergency department, presently there's one emergency trained RN overnight. There's also on the acute medical unit an additional registered nurse that may or may not have the emergency training, and an LPN, as you had referenced.
Okay, and so you speak of bringing in more RNs. Is that what the plan is?
That is the plan. So, the work dovetails and runs concurrent to what's called the minimum nurse-patient ratio work that's happening provincially. And so for rural emergency departments, it's been reflected that part of the challenge in attracting and recruiting nurses to work in rural is the fear they have of being alone in an emergency room in a remote location by themselves overnight. And so the proposal across the province is to move to a 2-nurse overnight model. For other jurisdictions that we've looked at for virtual overnight ED coverage, it is a 2-nurse model. So it will take us time to have permanent recruitment into those roles. But as we're moving towards a launch of this, we are already preloading using agency and GoHealth nursing staff to ensure we can meet that overnight 2-nurse model.
Okay, thank you very much. And you think that you'll be able to fill the position, because right now RNs are currently sort of unicorns to find. So I'm curious where we find them.
No, for sure. And certainly I've tried to plant them, but they're not growing successfully in my garden either. I think the main thing to realize is it will take time to build our own internal pools of nurses. And so we're very grateful for the external workforce. For our agencies, GoHealth is health authority hired nurses who like to travel around and try different locations. And we've actually had quite a bit of success in Clearwater with recruiting through using an external workforce. And then they come, they love it, and they want to stay. So in the end, I think because you're not working alone, it now becomes more appealing to come in as a nurse to these communities, just the way I'm anticipating for physicians to retain in rural, that this is a model that makes the rural lifestyle a true competitor for bringing staff in. It will take us time, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. When is the pilot proposing to start?
Yeah, no, great question. So we are 3 out of 4 communities we've gone to do the physician engagement that Dr. Perdue referenced that we had the fortune of doing in Clearwater. So our last community of Princeton, and then, working through all the pieces that we need in order to get 4 sites to go live at once. I had referenced Caribou Memorial, and that was a single site go live. So what we did at that site is what we call a soft launch, where you make sure that everyone's comfortable working in the new model. And so we're hoping for an end of November soft launch where we have providers cover their own site virtually with familiar staff and familiar patients, and then move to adding in that model that you saw Dr. Perdue present, where now you're starting to cover your site and maybe one more, and then layering in the multi-site coverage model that we envision. Each step of the way, making sure we take the feedback and learnings and are ready for the next layer. We do anticipate it taking up to 6 weeks to get to that fulsome coverage model. We have physicians who say, I'm ready to go yesterday. I think, Dr. Perdue, you've worked in a model like this in the Yukon. It just comfort level with delivering virtual care is where we want to get all 24 of our doctors to. And we want to support them with the time it might take to do that. The last point I'll make on that, though, is that we have built out the schedule in all 4 sites to be able to have our current in-person overnight while we're working to transition to virtual, so that that we don't leave coverage gaps as we're moving through those phases of launch.
And in follow up with that, what is considered to be overnight? Would this start at 9 p.m., 8 p.m., 11 p.m.?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Purdue, but it's an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. overnight. That is the current definition for the physicians.
That's the current definition, with recognition that, if a physician is on site, still at 8 p.m. finishing their patients, if a patient comes in who would clearly benefit from in-person coverage, or that in-person physician would like to see the ones that walk in, especially, knowing it's an awkward feeling if a patient walks in and sees you there and you say, no, bye, you're going to see the virtual doctor. So there would be some overlap for the in-person and the virtual with this.
Thanks very much for that. And I guess the next thing is when I'm hearing the scheduling, it sounds, very optimistic about our local physicians maybe only having to take, what did you say, 1 in 24?
24.
24. But there would be a need for, on the local landscape, for still to have kind of that sub-scheduling. Are there any anticipations with that being a challenge? So it seems to me that even if you've got your 4 physicians here, they would still have to take a 1 in 4, you might get called shift. Is that right?
Yes, and we have discussed that and are looking at the logistics of that. Ideally, with this virtual model, from what we've heard from other sites using it, the on-site physician is rarely called in. So it might be more feasible to do the 1 in 4 that way, or to even say, we don't have any, local on-call shifts this week. I will cover overnight for the week, anticipating that perhaps I'll get woken up once, as compared to our current where I expect to get woken up 3 times.
Great. And I think that the final question I would have for this round of questions is, how does this impact a payment model? So would this create still a competitive environment? So for example, we do know that there's other hospitals within British Columbia that are really competitive, especially for the emergency hours. With an 8 to 8, will this impact maybe our ability to recruit because of a financial impact?
Did you want me to answer that one, Dr. Purdue?
Sure. So it definitely has the potential to impact. So from what we discussed at our information session, if you are the doctor covering the 4 sites, you will be on what we call the alternate payment plan, where you're making an hourly wage that pays competitively with other sites across the province. On the nights that you are the in-town physician on call for backup, you would be paid on what's called the medical on-call availability program, which is quite a bit less. That is what our physicians are on currently, where if we get called in, we then bill per patient per procedure. What we're hoping is that because we're looking at getting the alternate payment plan for our daytime hours in Clearwater, the idea of working that 12 hours, being paid competitively there, and then being paid on call overnight with less likelihood of having to get up and disrupt your sleep, that itself will be attractive to rural ED locums. I haven't spoken to any locums about what they would think about that, so it's certainly an important thing for us to consider and get some more feedback on as to, would this deter them or would this attract them.
Any further questions from anyone? I'm sure you can ask your questions in person.
Yeah, I could. The only last one I would ask is you've brought up sort of the nursing and that are any of these models looking to incorporate any of the nurse practitioners? We're seeing a lot of graduation rates in that area. Is that something that's being considered to support this model, or is it really just going to be those ED or those emergency nurses as trained?
So from from the in-person clinical support side, at this point, we're looking at ED trained RNs as the in-person.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? If not, thank you, Dr. Kara. Thank you, Karen. Great to finally understand what's going on here. Oh, one more question.
How are you conveying this to the public?
Right. What's the messaging plan? Is there one?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know the minister's done some announcements, and I'm still waiting to see the public engagement strategy. So I really can't answer that at this point. We're engaging with our municipal partners as part of our communications plan. There will be a public engagement and communication plan. I just it has yet to be approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowell, you are up next. True Consulting, District Grant Updates and Grant Applications. Fire away when you're ready.
Thanks, guys. Afternoon. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
We can.
Obviously virtual today. You're good. Okay. So, I don't know if there's anything else that we want to pull up. I provided staff with a summary memo of the grants that we've applied for and that we're seeking council resolution on. There's two separate grants. The first one is this Canadian Housing Infrastructure Fund, the CHIF grant. It was applied for earlier in the year. It is a grant that is related, needs to be directly related to housing. It's the project needs to show a direct benefit to housing. We hummed and hawed on a few different options on this. We ultimately settled on the Park Drive lift station. It, more than other projects, we felt was able to draw a direct correlation between development approvals and infrastructure. It's not that there's other projects that would not benefit development, but the other projects aren't necessarily a direct hindrance to the development's proceeding. So we made that application and now are asking for council resolution. It is a 50% funded project, so the district is on the hook for a pretty big chunk still. For this one, it isn't a mandatory document for the council resolution, but asking around a little bit, it is some communities elected to get a resolution, some didn't. Since we're here talking about grants anyway, we figured it wouldn't hurt. It's also worthwhile, given the amount of money, I think, to have a discussion about what the district's commitment is on this grant. Yeah, so I guess before we move on to the SPF, do we want to, are there any questions on the CHIF grant application or the budget or the process or anything like that?
Yep, sure.
The actual memo that Chris is referring to is on page 22 of 95 behind the report that our director of operations did. So if you want to follow along,
And yeah, maybe use your mic because Chris can't hear you. Is your mic on? Oh, sorry.
Chris, the actual memo that you're referring to is on page 22 of 95 in our agenda. And I just let council know that, so if they want to follow along on the same song sheet. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, so I think you hit a little bit on, like, council was somewhat not aware of two of these grants, Park Drive Lift Station and Clearwater Valley Supply Main. The park, yeah, that have already been submitted. Yeah, no, I do think that those are the right choices, especially on the Park Drive Lift Station. Anything we can do to get this going can get a lot of pressure off of us as far as moving forward with housing needs in this community. Questions from council, or do you need a minute? Go ahead, Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much. On page 22, which is the memo, the estimated project cost, Class D, 2.4. Therefore, the district's commitment is going to be for 1.2. Maybe this is for Ms. Klassen. Where does the district's share of that come from?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm probably not as well versed as Ms. Clausen, but of that 2.4 million, 50% is covered by the grant, and the remaining $1,237,200 will be funded from reserves through an internal borrowing process, so from our own reserves, but it'll be repaid potentially by the developers of the Park Drive properties as that development occurs. So essentially, the project hopefully will get this grant will cover half the project cost, and then the developers will be on the hook for the other half, and will get repaid either through a DCC process or some type of an off-site servicing agreement with those developers as they move forward with their plans. And it actually represents, because we're getting funding for half of it, it actually represents a lower cost to those developers than we have previously talked about when we talked about their individual subdivisions. The rationale behind the district putting in 50% is this project is going to cover off a lift station at Park Drive, but what it is, it's a replacement for the hospital lift station. So the hospital lift station, which is getting near the end of its life cycle, not at the very end yet, but getting nearer the end of its life cycle, it will be upsized and replaced, and Park Drive sewer system will be built, will go into that lift station. So that's the justification for putting some district money, even though it's grant funded, would be because there is some replacement of existing infrastructure.
Councillor Herring.
So just to clarify that I'm understanding that correctly, we have enough money in the sewer reserve to cover this short term.
Are you suggesting that 1.2, we have enough money? No. No, but we would be borrowing it internally from the general fund, a general reserve.
Okay. Okay, further questions, comments? Councillor Bratton.
If you borrow from the general reserve, what's the time frame for paying that back?
We haven't determined that yet. Those
Okay.
details we have to determine moving forward, unless you have something. No.
So there's no like legal requirement of a time frame provincially or whatever federally?
Well, there's a couple of timeframes in there. The intent around this one is to recover funds through a DCC or a development process. So if it is through a DCC process, we could go ahead and do this and use some of the funding or funding that we collect through that, whatever that process is. If it's a DCC process, you can have up to 10 years to collect if you put on the list. Or if it is through agreements, just specific offsite servicing agreements with the various developers, then it would depend on when that gets developed. So the vision is, at some point in time, those funds get replaced into the reserves, but by using our own reserves for it, it allows us the ability to go ahead now, since that is the stumbling block to development in that area.
Councillor Herring?
So I've heard feedback that our DCCs are currently too high, and that's another factor preventing these developments from going forward. So how is the fact that, high DCCs could prevent this from going forward, combined with we need the DCCs to pay this back, going to balance? Are we going to be able to lower DCCs but still keep the repayment on this reasonable?
Thank you. Chris may want to weigh in on this one, but the DCCs were initially based on the full project cost. So by getting a 50% grant towards that project cost, it does lower those DCCs. And you're exactly correct. That is the feedback we heard from those developers, that the DCCs were too high. They would not go ahead with that high level of DCC. So we may end up having some type of a development agreement or instead of a DCC process where perhaps there's more cost certainty on their side of what their share of that will be as well. That's one of the other issues with the DCCs is the people who are in first on the project pay most of the DCCs, and then the people who come in late, they don't end up paying as much, right? Because as the project gets paid for. So if you have specific agreements on that area, you can determine what's the equitable portion for each of the developers' properties, depending what their plans are. And then at that point in time, it probably becomes less of a hindrance to develop.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You're correct, Byron. The total cost amount being collected from the developers is less because we're on the hook for 50% of it. And further to that, the per door cost in the previously proposed DCC 6 months ago was like $50,000 a door, because the way the DCCs are calculated, it averaged that cost out over the first 50 doors, because it's based on growth projections, which tie back to Stats Canada. If we're able to structure the cost sharing in a way that's more equitable to all developers and divide by a smaller project value, we hope that it gets to a point where it is manageable and the projects are still feasible by sharing that over all the units that would be contributing, and having a lesser price in general. There's various mechanisms for funding. There's DCCs, there's lake covers, there's local service agreements, any of which has kind of their pros and cons, and they're pretty strict on the way that those are to be administered by a municipality. But either way we slice this, if we can get the federal government to contribute 50% off the top, it's no matter which way we are able to work through with the various developers in the area on the best way for a cost sharing arrangement, getting 50% off the top is going to be beneficial.
Thank you. I have one question quickly, and then I'll look around the room, and Councilor McKenzie has it. I don't know if it's proposed legislation or it's passed legislation, but the province changing the DCC process to 2/3, was it 1/3 now and 2/3 at time of occupation? Does that affect our ability to pay? I mean, obviously it would affect our ability to pay back, but does it apply here?
Yeah, I don't know if that's approved. I know there's an announcement coming in November, I want to say I had read. You might have learned more at UBCM. I'm not sure. Yeah, so currently, and it depends if we're talking the land use matters, because do you collect at time of subdivision versus time of building permit, where what you're talking about is actually time of occupancy.
Yeah.
And if we're talking fee simple DCCs, so single family residential compared to commercial, the time of collection differs. And I don't want to get too far into the DCC topic here, but right now we're proposing time of subdivision for collection as opposed to building permit, so that the municipality can collect the money when the project needs to be funded.
Right.
So I think we can circle back on that once there's firm announcement from the province on potential changes to that legislation.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Councilor McKenzie had one at least.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Blackwell. With an updated, larger lift station on Long Park Drive, I'm just curious, I may be overthinking it, but pressure put on our siphon, if we're already doing that now. I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that. Are we not? Is the chicken coming before the egg here, in a sense? I know they're both needed, but are we maybe jumping in the wrong order for something like this? Thanks, Chris.
No, it's a good question. So, the lift station can only be upsized so much before the force main actually needs to be upgraded. So right now it's a pressure force main right up until the Park Drive and Robson intersection. So you have this portion of force main that's going to be the limiting factor. Then there's a portion of gravity along Robson and it kind of goes through houses before it converts to the siphon, there's going to be a capacity issue there, as that also receives flow from, Dairy Queen, Egram Homes, like other parts of the sewage collection system. And then it gets into the siphon. The current issue with the siphon is not driven by capacity. The risk to the siphon is the primary risk to the siphon is blockage. Because of the amount of head you can build on that, if all the siphon was ever conveying was water and there was no risk of blockage, the issue with the siphon is not capacity. So I'm more concerned about the capacity of the force main and the capacity of the gravity system than I am the siphon. The siphon's a different risk, different issue. Does that answer your question? The lift station, I guess, just to get some clarity, because I don't want to raise alarms on the force main, the lift station sizing and flow rate will be restricted by the force main. And don't quote me on the number of units, but it's like hundreds that can be conveyed within the existing force main. At some point, force main will be needed and gravity upgrades will be needed, but it's like long ways down the road where those constraints come in. Right now, the first bottleneck in the system is the lift station.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen a diagram, so I couldn't really remember exactly how it was laid out to gravity, force main, etc. But yeah, thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor Sim?
Thanks very much. And with this new lift station, how many lots are you suggesting would be serviced?
So the capacity of the lift station, like Councillor Sim, I don't want to give you a number because I don't want to get it wrong. And unfortunately, I don't have that in front of me right now. It's about double. And right now, I know it off of flow rate. It's about 26 liters per second. About 13 is existing. So I want to say it's about double. I don't, off the top of my head, know what that means in terms of doors, unfortunately. So I can follow up and get you that information on the number of doors that would be added in terms of like how much capacity would be added to the system in terms of doors. I just don't know it off the top of my head. Sorry.
No, that's okay. And the purpose of the question is that the number of doors sort of gives an idea about that 1.2 million that the district would be responsible for and how that payment would be. And I'm only asking because it looks like this grant went in on March 11th, but we're just hearing about it now. So it's kind of a big dollar amount, not necessarily understanding how many people could be potentially brought on.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. And I'll just say too, guys, like I dropped the ball on bringing this forward, so I apologize for that. Applied for the grant, moved on, and this just slipped through the cracks. So shouldn't have be coming forward in October for something that went in March. So True is gonna get better at following up on these items afterwards. So just apologies on that. The dollar amount is not insignificant. I get it on that piece. And I can get back to you on kind of like, what's the ROI? Like, are we spending 1.2 million for 20 doors or 200?
Yep.
I think it's closer to 200, like to ballpark it. This is not like we get 40 or 50 doors out of this for 1.2 million. I just can't remember the exact number off the top of my head.
No, that's okay. I just heard you said 26, but now I'm feeling much better with 200 as an ish.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
Okay.
The 26 was liters per second.
Okay, that's great. And then just lastly on that one, who actually gives the approval to this grant? Like, is this federal, so it goes through federal purview, or does it run through UBCM and the province?
I don't think UBCM, Byron, you might know better. I don't think UBCM has any role in this. Liam in our office actually reached out to the CHIF people yesterday, because usually you're starting to hear back on these types of things by now, right? And they said, just, what did they say? Late fall or winter. Well, it's kind of like, it is fall. So I actually assume we're going to find out prior to Christmas, realistically. And I think if I had to guess, this is all through like federal funding and the federal government. I don't think there's a UBCM role, but Byron could confirm that. Maybe.
Thank you. I wish I could confirm that, but I believe it's federal as well. But
Yeah, no, and just sometimes they do run things, and I was just wondering how that might sort of impact, given, I'm going to call it geopolitics in Canada these days, where they're going to allocate those types of fundings and what that means.
Yeah, this was funded before the election, for what it's worth, the federal election.
Yeah, but if BC got its discussion points, it may not find rural BC.
Fair.
And if I could add one comment, Chris is right. This one grant kind of slips through the cracks, but I would add that no decision is being made on this yet from the grantor's perspective. So if council is not in favor of applying for this grant, because there is some risk around that 1.2 that we're going to put out, some risk around when we will get that money back in. So if council says, no, we don't want to apply for that grant, we respect that, and we would go back to the granting agency and say, please withdraw our grant. So that is still at the discretion. Council has always maintained that discretion on this grant, even though the late timing of it.
Further comments or questions? Do you want to go on to the next one, Chris? Sorry, which is the
Sure.
SPF.
Yeah, so Strategic Priorities Fund, it is administered through UBCM. It's a grant we've had success before, I think a couple of times. In this instance, we applied for two different streams. There's capital, which is like infrastructure projects you're going to build, and there's capacity building. You can apply for both streams. We did that on the capital side. We have applied for the Clearwater supply main. That project's well into detailed design. We've applied for ministry crossing permit. We're essentially done detailed design. So that's project sitting in a great spot. It has a ton of benefit, ticks a lot of the boxes on the SPF, water and sewer infrastructure categories. So that is a project I think everybody is aware of and knows the background. We were able to provide lots of background information on that in support. And that, unlike the CHIF grant, the SPF council resolution is a mandatory document, but it can follow afterwards. They just want to know when. So that it's no harm, no foul that we're coming after that's been submitted and asking for resolution on that. That one is roughly 10% district contribution. Historically, you can apply for 100% funding, and historically we have done that, sometimes with success, and that's great when we do. In this case, we figured we should base the application on the breakdown that we've come up with in the DCCs, which is roughly a 90-10 split, existing versus proposed, to give some rationale for the district contributing some amount to the project. I think that it'll strengthen the application and show a commitment from the district on the project, as opposed to just saying, here we really need this, can you help us? It's saying we're in, I get it, it's only 10%, but we're in for a certain amount. So I don't have it, I can get it in front of me here, but it's the district share on this is 320,562. So that's what we would be, council, would be committing to, plus management, commitment to manage the project and any cost overruns. That's what this request is for.
Mr. Johnson, you want to ring in this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so as Chris mentioned, the funding coming from the district on this one, $320,000, and that would be funded from a combination of the existing water DCC reserve, which is $146,000, and then $174,000 from the water capital reserve. So no taxation funding in this immediate impact from reserves.
And I do note this one, and Chris touched on this, this is a Class B estimate, so the success rate on things that are higher through the design phase usually gives us a better opportunity of success. In your
Exactly, and I think that shows some forethought from staff and council to invest that money to get the detailed design done and show where we're at with the project for when these opportunities come along to say, we got a shovel-ready project.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments on that one? Okay, move on to the next one, and we can always circle back.
Yep. Last one is the capacity building stream through SPF. And this is a really interesting project. I think we termed it like a Taseko mine readiness project. There's an infrastructure impact to it, but it's more of a what is needed and what would the impact be to the district if and when the Yellowhead mine goes ahead. And there's a part of that that's infrastructure related, but a lot of it is land use changes and housing changes and impact on services, be it, whether it's Interior Health, who was just on the call, or our CMP, school district, and, city hall staffing, like kind of looking at it from a number of different lenses. Traffic impact assessment. I know we all kind of went through what occurred with the Trans Mountain camp, and I'm sure there's lessons learned from that in terms of like both benefits and negatives to the community, and trying to get ahead of that so that when the project moves forward, we're in a position to say to the mine, like, here's the impact, how can we work together to resolve what we see as some issues that may come from that, or changes that need to come from that. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting project, and I think it'll be a unique application compared to what I suspect they'll be receiving from most communities on this intake. So I'm hopeful that they support it, but I'm open to any questions on this. There is no contribution from the district on this, by the way.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? My question is the Clearwater Valley Supply Main and the Infrastructure Master Plan update, are they in the same intake? Okay.
Mutually exclusive.
Okay, thank you. That was the risk that has happened before, that they choose one, and usually the lower one over the higher priced one, just to give us something, and I didn't want to, consideration.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, human nature, I don't know, but no, these are two separate streams.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Because it's a grant, is there any timeline on when the project would have to be finished? And I asked that more particularly with the first one for the lift station.
I don't know off the top of my head. That's another good question. Realistically, on the Park Drive lift station one, if we find out in December that it's funded, it's probably not realistic to get it designed, procured, and constructed in 26. It's probably a 27 construction. The water main, if it was funded, given where we're at with the design, it likely could proceed in 26. It could, subject to, permitting and things like that, but the design's at a spot where I'd be confident with that one. In terms of deadlines, I don't know. I want to say it's 5 years, but I could be wrong.
And that's okay, because it sounds like if we are successful, we can use their share 1.2 to fund the initial stages, and then that just shifts how maybe the district looks at the rest of the funding.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. We do vote on this. I could move this up, I guess, to bypass temporarily 13 and 14 and 15 and just go to new business on this. And
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, the resolutions that are on page 19, so we could vote on those.
Okay, so I think we'll do that. So we'll move to page 19. So the first recommendation, the council adopt the following resolutions in support of the district's 2025 grant application. Resolution 1, that council support the submission of an application to the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund, CHIF, grant for the 2025 stream in the amount of up to $2,474,000 and $400 for the Park Drive lift station, and that council agrees to commit 50% of the funding in the amount of $1,237,000 and $200 towards that project, and that the council direct staff to provide the overall management of the grant, and that the district would be responsible for cost overruns should they occur. That's resolution 1. Mover and a seconder?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Sims, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Further discussion? Councillor Bratton.
Just because everything goes over, what's our fund? Do we have enough funds if this goes over, say, some stupid amount of $1 million? Like, what if we're on the hook for that?
Is there, generally, there's contingency built into bids on this of what do we usually do? 20%, 15%, 10%?
In this case, it was 25.
Okay, so they build into the pricing, they build in a 25% contingency. That said, you're right, it could go beyond that, and depending on timing and that sort of thing, yes, we would have to come back to it, but that's why we're stating that we'd be responsible for that. So, okay, further questions? If not, all those in favor?
No.
Oh, Bill? No?
No, I think probably the only comment is that I think that this is a very proactive grant, and it's actually really exciting. And the only reason I was a little dismayed about the March is because this would have been such fun news to have shared, because it's so positive, and it really gives, when people in the community, they say, you know, well, what's happening? What's the district doing? This is the answer. So thank you very, very much for your work on this. It is wonderful.
100% agree, and I think as far as moving this community forward, it's a big thorn. This is the one. We'll get this one, and hopefully we're successful on this one. All those in favor? And that one passes. So resolution 2, that council support the submission of an application to the Strategic Priorities Fund grant for the 2025 stream in the amount of up to $3,238,000 for the Clearwater Valley Supply Main project, and that council agrees to commit 9.9% of the funding in the amount of $320,562 towards the project, and that council direct the district staff to provide the overall management of the grant, and that the grant be responsible for cost overruns the district be responsible for cost overruns should they occur. Would somebody like to move?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Herring. Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Discussion. This is another one that has bounced around in improvements in this area on water system. You know, we did a fairly extensive analysis of the area around the roundabout and the needs for fire flow, and we've had deficiencies there for a long time. So this one to me is actually very exciting as well. It solves a lot of problems. So. Any discussion beyond that? If not, all those in favor? And that one passes as well. Thank you. And then resolution 3, that the council support the submission of an application to the Strategic Priority Fund grant for the 2025 stream in the amount of up to $300,000 for the Infrastructure Master Plan update, Yellowhead Mines Readiness Project, and that council agrees the district will be responsible for any cost overruns should they occur, and that the council direct staff to provide the overall management of the grant, and that the district will be responsible for cost overruns should they occur. I think I'm swallowing marbles right now. Any mover and a seconder on this one? We're going to go with McKenzie and Sim, and questions, comments on this one. I will make a comment on this. At UBCM, pretty much every meeting that we had the lens of Yellowhead and the possibility of Yellowhead on it. You know, as stated online, we have to be prepared for this project whether it happens or not. It would be negligent to be 5 years or 3 years down the line when this clears environmental assessment and then start planning. So, you know, it's not an endorsement of the mine, it is getting the community ready in advance should it happen. And then, you know, unfortunately, if it does not happen, then we've spent $300,000, which would be a great learning experience. But if it's not directly district money, then I could feel a little bit better about that. Further discussion?
Just to clarify, the $300,000 isn't ours, so we're delighted to learn on somebody else's dollar. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if I had to make this decision based solely on taxpayer dollars, it would be a much harder decision to go ahead with it. They are taxpayer dollars from another fund, but they are, at this point, not mostly local taxpayer dollars. And I still think a look at this would set us up for this project or many other projects, because there are also 3 more mines in the North Thompson Valley that are in the proposal stage. And the indication that we got at UBCM is that there is a lot of interest in mines being, applications being successful from the provincial level.
I think also just having an infrastructure master plan will be a great guiding document for
Yes.
future councils
I
as
think
well.
we're-
So thank you very much again for your work on this.
Yeah, I think we'll learn lots when this one happens,
Yep.
if and when it happens. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Crowell.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Okay, just give me a half a second to get a drink of water here. Mayor's report. I had a few things on here. Attended the OCP.
Mayor Blackwell,
Oh, sorry.
can we circle back to item 8.1?
Oh, which one?
Minutes.
Oh, did we miss minutes of the regular council meeting? Hey, look at that. 8.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held September 16, 2025. We have a recommendation.
Moved.
So moved, Councillor Herring, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? Thank you. Any error or omissions, just let Mr. Prime know. Mayor's report, attended the OCP session at the Ski Hill. That was really good. There, if you didn't notice, there's an embedded PDF in an email that Jerry sent out over the weekend. So with the slide deck from that presentation for us to review. Several other meetings I attended. The last couple days of the last week were TNRD, a lot going on there, especially with the hospital board. It sounds like I'll be going to Victoria at the end of November to meet with the minister in relation to stuff to do with our hospital. So obviously with what we learned today, there can be a few more conversations when it comes to the ED pilot project. I do have a UBCM report on table. I'm going to give you the bare highlights, and I've already submitted it to Mr. Prime, so it can be added. The full report can be added to the agenda or to the minutes package. Had a lot of conversations. I think I clocked 75 or 80 conversations in the first day and a half with various elected officials. Did a special session, Resilient Local Leaders, Charting the Course of Mental Health Supports with Josie Osborne and keynote speaker Corey Hirsch. And I'll let Councillor McKenzie talk about that experience because he really enjoyed that. We had a meeting with BC Hydro about power supply issues in the North Thompson Valley and what would be the issues with potentially piggybacking on the Yellowhead Mine project, power line project. We also did learn from that, and it's now been released by TMX that they are running additional power up from Kamloops to as far as Black Pines, and then a pipeline expansion from McClure to, I believe, Darfield. So there's going to be probably some power impacts on that. The next one I'll talk about is I was part of a 1.5 hour and a half special presentation to Minister Osborne on the rural healthcare situation, thanks to the local ambulance management and our Dr. Kara Perdue for notes on that. It was very useful. Was one of 3 speakers with about 20 other mayors and regional district people in attendance. Great conversation, but there's a lot of similar problems in the province to what we're experiencing here, but also a lot that are different. Some places it's all about doctors, some places it's all over about nurses, some places it's actually about ambulances and ambulance crews. So it's all over the place. Met with Tara Faganello, who's the ADM for Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs, to talk about exactly what we've just been talking about, the needs for infrastructure, but also the historic needs for water and sewer and other infrastructure on the ground, and that we really need to push from the province for that sort of thing. So, but it's the start of a conversation. I hope to be able to have a conversation with Minister Ma when I'm down in Victoria. She was away for this UBCM. And Thursday morning, we had a meeting with Mines Minister Jagrat Brar to discuss the process and possibilities around the Taseko project. It was a very good conversation. We exchanged business cards with a couple of key staff. It was well-rounded. The environmental assessment process is not just about assessing environmental issues. It is about talking about all issues that would relate to a community. It was also a good conversation about the timelines on the environmental assessments. It will happen as it happens. There's no push faster or slower or rush on that. The only thing that might affect that is if the federal program piggybacks on the provincial for data, which could speed up the process slightly. But yeah, it was a very positive conversation, and we do now have contacts within that ministry at a staff level in order to ask a full range of questions if need be. So that was very useful. And I'll leave it at there and move it on to Councillor Bratton.
Other than UBCM, we did, a few of us attended Truth and Reconciliation. And the gals here, well, gentlemen too, that plan that, they do a very good job. I always learn something new, and I didn't know where Orange Shirt Day originated from. So they're very good at teaching us and bringing us up where we need to be on all these levels. And just want to say at UBCM, that's an amazing experience. First time for me to go. I forwarded Mr. Prime my little report. But basically, Merlin does all the heavy lifting, I have to say. To be able to attend with him and learn tricks from him is very beneficial. You get to meet a ton of people, connections, and you trip up across people constantly that you would never trip across and have these new connections. So tell us, for instance, we go to get free things and I end up in a conversation just learning how to say hi and what's going on, and they're coming up in the valley again for more discussions and to build better infrastructure and things up here. So that's coming down the pipe. I went to a Trans Mountain breakfast and met some great people there, and of course they gave us their report of coming up for, well, actually they didn't tell us there about McClure to Darfield. That was new on their pamphlet, but of course all of this is, I did reread that it's they're in conversation parts. They're still canvassing for for that.
Yeah, with the First Nations, etc.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And I just have one story to tell that as we're following Merlin around, and we're at one function, and you trip outside, and you just randomly, bump into Josie Osborne and Ravi, and they just start talking to him, and like, hey, how's it going? And how can we help you? And that's super cool. And you can't put a price on that. It's beneficial for us all to be around that and learn those skills. So anyways, just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, that was how it goes. It was just tripping over ministers. Before we met with the mine, I'll tell this one because this is fun. Before we met with the mine minister, I was leaving one reception, and I'm going to state for the record here that I do not drink at UBCM. I do not. I haven't had a drink at UBCM, alcoholic drink, in probably 5 years. I make it a practice that I don't do that as mayor. But I was leaving one reception and following a couple of people to the next reception, and this guy's, I knew one of the guys is a councillor from the Victoria area, and the other one I didn't know, and he asked me where I was from, and I said Clearwater, and he says, oh, well, what do you think about this Yellowhead project? And I said, well, this, that, and the other thing. And we walked for probably 10, 15 minutes, and he handed me his business card, and he's the assistant to the Minister of Mines, and he says, the guy walking in front of you is the Mines Minister. So it is these sidewalk opportunities that you have to have, you know, to inform people that you may not even know you're informing them about your issue. So sometimes you have to be a little careful about what you say and how critical you are of things. So anyways, thank you for that report. I'll go to Councillor Fizzle, who has another one of those fantastic coincidental meetings.
Indeed, I did. It was a really good session. I'm really glad I did go to UBCM, but you've heard it all. But what happened for one luncheon is I went into a lunch and sat down. There's strangers there. You just have a little casual conversation and you're not really saying too much. And then the fellow that was sitting beside me stood up because he realized that Merlin was the mayor, and he reached over to introduce himself and said, "I'm the seniors advocate of BC." And I just froze. I'm like, "You're what?" I don't even think he shook his hand. He sat down and you need to talk to her. So we had a really long chat through lunch. He wanted to know all about what we do here in Clearwater. I told him about the seniors lunch. He wants to come up and be part of the lunch, which since that time I've stretched out into something more than the lunch. So the Seniors Advocate is coming to Clearwater in spring, and we're going to have a big session, and we're going to have lots of people there, and it's going to be a big deal, and I'm really excited. I didn't expect that to happen, and I think this is really good for Clearwater. One of the things he told me is he wants to beat his predecessor, who visited every community in BC except for 44, so he wants to hit every community in BC, including all those 44, and she never came to Clearwater, so this is the first one.
Excellent. Cool. Anything else to add?
Oh yes, and of course I attended the Orange Shirt Day too, and the open house with the OCP. That was really interesting, and I think good things are going to come from it. So that's it.
And well, before we move on that one, I'd like to note that Cindy Wilgosh, the amazing organizer for this, did note the district's contribution to this because of the short funding. So whoever suggested that she bring that forward as a grant app, thank you for that. Moving on to Councillor Herring.
Not much for me. Did attend the OCP visioning session at the Ski Hill. It was really great to hear from the community's business owners and you know, just some of their vision for what we could be in the next while. And that's about it for me.
First
That's right.
responders.
I forgot that was last week. I also attended the first responders dinner, and it was great to see the big turnout actually from fire department, but you know, that's also search and rescue, the ambulance, and the RCMP. And so it's really good to see all the different groups represented at that event. And yeah, great food, that's for sure. Always great.
And the Legion hosted that. Were there any awards or anything at that?
There were some long service awards, yeah. A couple of folks, I don't remember the names, but yeah, I've been with the fire department, I think 25 years was one, or 35 even.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, anyways, thank you for that report. Councillor McKenzie, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. I did send a report into Mr. Prime. It's long when it's typed out, but I'll kind of skim over there momentarily. I also did attend the OCP workshop at the Ski Hill, and many thanks to Cindy Wilgosh and her team as well for another successful Truth and Reconciliation Day at the DLCC here. I'll just kind of skim over my week. I did go to UBCM. Every year when I go there, I always start off doing the agri-tour. It's nice to see successes, challenges everywhere at the different places we end up going. So, like I said, began my week UBCM, joining other local officials, elected officials, First Nation reps, and MLAs from around the province, alongside the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, led by Minister Lana Popham. We did a scenic educational tour on the Saanich Peninsula, showcased a broad, diverse range of farming operations that help support resiliency of the agricultural industry on southern Vancouver Island. While visiting there, we were able to see different opportunities and challenges related to planning for agriculture, where increased development and densification, limited available land, and high prices have put pressure on farmers in all farm operations. This tour showcased various forms of agriculture, such as soil-based vegetable production, livestock farming, as well as highlighting the region's food hub, which is a commercial kitchen that offers support to farmers and local food entrepreneurs to help create value-added goods from farm products. Including this building, just looking at, like we have our breakfast program at elementary school. This program in particular deals with 127 schools in that one district, or a region, we'll call it. It's pretty impressive to see them work. It's a husband-wife team, dual-purpose building that is huge, and it is go, go, go all day while they're there. So pretty amazing to see. We'll let more come out of the report about that, but with over 1 million pounds of food pass through their doors each year. It's pretty amazing to see. We checked out an organic farm, fruits, veggies, 10-acre piece, beautiful area. But the one main thing from there is they've come up with a way to deter the flocks of geese, which I would love to see happen at Dutch Lake. And the logistics behind it, I'm not 100% sure, but strictly baler twine on posts, and they will not land there. And we were at his farm for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I watched 3 flocks with more than I could count land in the neighbor's field, and those fields were absolutely leveled, where this guy was just flourishing with everything he was growing outside of the greenhouse. And it was just strictly gridded baler twine. So something to look into, because there may be ways around this humanely yet. We went to a 6th, soon to be 7th generation farm that's been around since 1862. Beautiful spot, ocean front. 400 acres with 100 acres of lease land nearby. They have a market. They have a similar to the Clearwater Stop right there on site. You'd have to see it. It's just explain it doesn't do it any justice. And the last stop there was a barley farm, Field 5 Farms. One of the 6th generation sons actually opened that farm, and they supply the majority of the breweries along the island, or the 4 main ones anyways, Phillips, etc. They look after them. Pretty cool. Getting right back from that, I was able to jump right into the resilient local leaders supporting mental health and elected officials. Something I never really believed in as much until I've been around long enough to see how it affects people, such as dear Mayor Jerry, who wrote a book about it. And
apparently you might play a role in the book. Speaking of incidental things.
Yeah. So I was able to jump right into Corey Hirsch's speech there, keynote speaker for mental health. It's huge. I waited until he was gone. I was able to go out and have a talk with him. He was an idol of mine growing up as a young kid in Clearwater here, 9, 10, 11 years old. So to actually, and knowing what he went through, following him from Kamloops Blazers to the NHL to this, and knowing just what he's gone through. I mean, I've been through it too. I've had dozen rounds or so in the ring with mental health in the last probably 35 years. So it's not something people like to talk about, hence the time to get rid of the stigma behind it. But it's huge. And the more, maybe it's age coming in, but the more I see it, the more I realize just how many people are affected by it. So to take 10 minutes of his time while his wife waited, talk my speech, talk about his goalie sticky sign for me, speak my story, and things hit close to home. And by the end of that conversation, we were hugging it out, and he was heading out with his wife for the night. So just small world stuff. And I do go back to the hotel and just take 10 minutes and kind of think about it, because it was all kind of just surreal, right? So neat experience. Glad I was there. Countless sessions over the next few days. I mean, this is only Monday I've talked about so far, and just scratched the surface. So as everyone else said, there's countless sessions, connections, the networking end of things that will follow you for years to come. That's probably the biggest one with that. Connections, as Councillor Frizzle had said, I had a mention in there about that one. Another one was sitting at our Silga lunch, and we have someone show up that just happens to just recently open an establishment that takes biosolids once they've been desludged. We just went through, we were just going through this, and all of a sudden, the connections would just fall into your lap, right? So pretty neat. And attending the Community Excellence Awards as well. Hearing her name mentioned is we'll call it a runner-up. I like that. Even though we didn't come home with any hardware, to hear us mentioned in a room jam-packed, competing with that many municipalities, I thought it was pretty neat. Even just getting our name mentioned, and that was for, if I got that right, excellence in service delivery, courtesy of our initiative with the initial TAC crew tied to our fire department. So just seeing how things have come, and with that many different municipalities in the room, pretty cool. I'm going to cut her short here and just pass it off because I could still go on for a bit here. So I'll let the report get printed off. Thanks.
Yes, and it'll be in the minutes for anybody who wants to it. And like a couple of us, you can always put it online as well if you so desire. And 100% on the mental health issue. I've definitely struggled with that my entire life. And this job we do definitely takes a toll on you. So, yes, it does. Yeah. Councillor Matheson is away today. Councillor Sim.
Thanks very much, and thanks for all the work, tripping over people, bumping into people, all of that. I do think it's actually a really neat story, Councillor Frizzle, about meeting the seniors advocate, because the seniors program here in Clearwater started as a result of a session we had heard at EBCM. So that's a nice roundabout. Yeah, easy that way. So here, back on the farm, big thanks to the work that went into putting up the Harvest Fair and all the different events happening there. We've been working on the OCP, and a lot of the descriptors have been the vibrancy of the community, and I just want to support it with facts, which is the really great work that's being done up at the Sportsplex. They've got a couple of new sessions for adult skating, and that's been requested and now been implemented, and that's hopefully will pick up some interest there. The Learn to Play Hockey School for Women was really great for everybody but me, because I still suck, but I tried. And also that they're doing some new sessions for how to introduce families to hockey, and that's been also well received. Maybe it's not something that families want to pick up on, but they're making it available. And I think access to something that's perceived as very expensive is a really great thing that's being done at our Sportsplex unit there. There's also been the CSS Boys Soccer Tournament here that was held, Dan Coleman race that was also held here. And it just seems that the events keep going. Ski Hill's going to be hosting a Fallout Fest on October the 18th, complete with pumpkin carving, corn shucking, and 6 bands will also be playing. Yeah, really. And then also just, of course, a shout out for the International Cultural Days that's happening this weekend, thanks to the district staff. So I think that about sums it up, with, again, continued appreciation to Cindy Wilgosh and her team. And hopefully next year, what we can do is we can get some other significant leadership within the community to come. I think we saw some gaps during the day, and it would be nice if maybe council, we could just do our work and say, would you come with me?
Yeah, no, I think that yes, it was noted, and I think that's incredibly important to stay. Yeah, thank you for that report. Sorry, clarification on the event at the Ski Hill. When is that again?
Is Saturday, October 18th.
Okay.
So it's going to be 3 to 6, an open vendor market. So it ties in nicely. So we'll have the morning market here at the gym, then goes into an afternoon for anybody who wants to. There's going to be, as I said, the pumpkin carving, lots of kids' games, bonfire. It'll feed right into dinner that'll start at 5. And then, as I said, live music. It'll be 19 plus after 9 p.m.
Nice. That sounds like a great place-making community event.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we did 16.1. We can move on to 17.1, which is bylaws. We have the Reserve Fund bylaw number 216, 2019, amendment bylaw number 326, 2025. Any comments from staff before we go into this be adopted? Nope. Any questions? Councillor Herring?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you.
I just had a question. With this reserve bylaw, given what we were talking about with the potential grants, would this would that be utilized or no? No, great, thanks.
Okay. So moved by Councillor Herring. Further, seconded by Councillor McKenzie.
Just to make clear, sure. So you said general reserve fund that would be used for the 1.2 is the district's share to borrow from internally.
We haven't determined exactly where it would come from. It's a 2026, I believe, or 2027 financial budget plan
Right.
item, and we will be able to determine that once we get closer.
Yeah, and so just for my clarity with this reserve fund, would that be something that would be considered as a potential source? Or is that up to council?
If council wishes to, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not something I would have recommended.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, but
She was trying to connect the dots and get somebody to say it out loud.
Just wanted to make sure that that's like just there's questions around it, and so your answer is fantastic. Thank you.
And we have successfully had that moved and seconded, Mr. Prime? I believe so. Okay, thank you. Bylaw number 326, 2025, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater Reserves Fund bylaw number 216, 2019. Whereas section 137 of the Community Charter provides the power to adopt a bylaw, includes the power to amend or repeal it, and whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater wishes to amend bylaw number 216, 2019, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater Reserve Fund bylaw number 216, 2019, amendment bylaw number 326, 2025. All those in favor? Opposed? Would you like to state why? If you wish.
Well, I've just been consistent. I voted against it the last 2 times. Seems a bit weird to vote in favor of it now.
Okay, thank you. Noted. And that is adopted. Moving on to 7.2, which is page 35 in your report for the report. Sorry, I just got to get to that. This is 328. Yeah, okay. Are there any permissions to tax exemption for Evergreen Acres Senior Housing Society bylaw number 328? There are 2 recommendations on this one, I believe, to be read the first and second time, and then a third as well. Does staff wish to speak to this at all?
So the purpose of this report to council is for council to provide direction or readings of the draft bylaw 328-2025 for Evergreen Acres Senior Housing Society permissive tax exemption. Last year, Evergreen Acres Housing Society did apply for a 3-year permissive tax exemption. However, council granted this applicant a 1-year exemption and extended an invitation to attend council meeting, and this happened September 16th, 2025. The District of Clearwater also advertised to invite other qualified applicants, and we didn't receive any. The application was complete, and it is attached to this report. The bylaw, the draft bylaw proposed must be adopted by October 31st, and staff is recommending 2 years just to put it back into the cycle of the other nonprofit organizations. The Evergreen Acres Senior Society owns a piece of property that is $6.8 million in value. In prior years, they've been granted 100% permissive tax exemption. The property has 62 units of blended affordability formulas. Some units are at market value, where a majority of them are lower at market value. The estimated 100% exemption is $44,856 in total. So that includes all taxes on that property, and that is exactly what we would be exempting. The municipal portion is $23,993. It can be noted that municipalities in the province vary on their approach to affordable housing. Some would extend their exemption to only lower than market housing, where others would do the entire property. And one thing to note on page 82 of your package, Schedule A, the total permissive tax exemption for the District of Clearwater is approximately all taxes in 121,348, and that is a good portion for a community of our size, for sure. And the municipal portion is 76,882. If the staff has asked the applicant, if council decides to reduce or eliminate the permissive tax exemption for Evergreen Acres, would they be able to collect those dollars from BC Housing or from their organization? And the answer is as follows. BC Housing may pay a portion of the taxes that would relate to Maine, which have 16 units, Larch Court, which is 20 units, and Cedar Place, which is 20 units. The applicant would be required to do a new budget for those phases, and BC Housing would assess whether they could cover the added expense.
Any questions on the report? Comments? Councillor Herring and Councillor Sim.
So for me, I twigged on that during their presentation last time. Their specific mention that if we wouldn't cover the exemption, that they would have to ask BC Housing. That strikes me as an interesting proposition, given that that's a chance to upload, and we are so fond of downloading. So it's a tough one, because absolutely, I think this is such an important community organization, and we want to support them. But the idea that there may be a provincial service that could cover this expense rather than the backs of the rest of the taxpayer, given that we do have such a large number of property tax exemptions, that's very tempting to me. That being said, I don't want to throw Evergreen Acres under the bus at last minute here, right while they have this. Is there a way we can softly push them to be accessing the BC Housing funding by, say, giving them a 50%?
Mr. Johnson, you wanted to weigh in on this, or with the added little bit at the end? Maybe not.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one way possible, I know in the past we've done a 1-year exemption, and that would also be a way possible if you wanted to grant another 1-year exemption and say, we want you to go to BC Housing and get the funding you could do, or your idea of just doing a lower amount.
Go ahead, follow up.
I think if the need isn't there, BC Housing is not going to meet it, right? So if we've granted them the exemption and they show, hey, here's our budget, there's nothing for them to show that they're short for BC Housing to have to chip in. Whereas at a 50% reduction, there is at least some amount of money that they can go in and say, hey, listen, our budget isn't meeting this, BC Housing needs to chip in, right? And then future years, we could consider, if BC Housing is footing that bill, maybe backing off entirely. But I feel like if we give them the 1-year extension, we put them in the same situation they were in last year, where they've paid their bills, and what does BC Housing need to chip in?
Councillor Sim?
I think following along the same vein is we do have a second phase of affordable housing. Do we have an agreement in place at all about any exemptions that have been asked?
There were some exemptions around the actual construction of that new building, and it actually carried over from the exemption that was given on the first building on the lot. So that exemption included DCC exemption, and it included some type of a break off the water connection, I believe.
Water and sewer connections, I think we either waived them in the end, or it was much lower rate.
Yeah, I believe we waived the inspection fees.
So with that, when I'm looking here at the affordable housing that's been provided on page 82, is the first unit considered in there, and what are they? I think they're 90%.
100%.
They're now 100%.
They always have been out, and for 10 years. council has approved that for 10 years.
And so why I'm asking is because if that's the precedent and then they're going to come online with fully built, is the expectation that that 100% philosophy would continue?
That's up to council at this point, because they haven't applied
Okay.
for it yet.
And so I think for me, when I look at this amount of money that's coming forward, is I'd really like to get maybe a restructuring of council's philosophies and priorities around this. This is a lot of money for a small town, especially when we've just heard that the district would be on the hook for 1.2 million for a potential project. Now, sure, there's ways to maybe look at that through DCCs. What I find interesting is how we support one building project over another building project. This is an area where I think we need some more conversation around. I would be comfortable doing a 1-year exemption for Evergreen today, and I know it doesn't get us into that 2-year, but I like what you're saying is if it's 50%, then there's a demonstrable need because an opportunity to upload would be fantastic. But to be able to carry that on, perhaps at the expense of other community organizations or community development. So that's where I'm going.
Go ahead, Councillor Herring.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I really think we need to start examining our DCC exemptions, our water connection exemptions. If you look at the majority of units we've added to this community over the past 5 years, we've exempted the majority of them from development cost charges. And it is because they're low income and we're trying to support a population, but that sells us all short. We can't provide services if we can't fund them. So I totally agree. This is one conversation, but the next conversation needs to be who are we granting these exemptions to generally?
Yeah, and making sure that we have those conversations where we're bringing all partners to should council have a different shift, but we are hearing nothing more in the news than the generation coming up is feeling left out of opportunity. And so when you look at taxes, when you look at sort of exemptions, it does fall on that demographic. So it is time for just reframing and repositioning of our community and looking ahead. I mean, even with some of the data that's coming through on the OCP, we're seeing, our age demographic shift. And so maybe is our philosophies around taxation and exemptions.
Okay. Further questions or comments? So reading the bylaw, it's not stated that it's 1 or 2 in the bylaw. So how do we make that happen? Oh, no, sorry, it is. It is in the top. So we would, yeah, it's in between the 2 lines there. I'll speak a little bit to it and then I'll ask if somebody wants to make an amendment. 100% agree that it's great to support community housing initiatives and it makes us a partner in them, but it can't go on forever. And with what we're hearing about provincial and federal deficits, I have a feeling we're not going to be seeing the number of grants and the frequency of grants and even things like the former gas tax are probably somewhat in question because they are going to be looking at everything. I would like to see a sunset on this or a reduction over time, but I think that needs to be a workshop discussion by council to do this in the near future, and knowing full well that some organizations that have the longer term ones will probably be grandfathered into the process until they could be phased out. But yeah, we can't, a significant portion of new housing in Clearwater has been in this category. If we were to continue that trend, we would be not taxing a significant portion of added value to the housing. And if you look at it all, it's essentially over 3 tax percentage points right now, heading towards 4. So yes, I want to support these initiatives, but I also want to find a different way to support them, especially if there is another agency or government level that is capable of chipping in. Does somebody want to make an amendment to this bylaw to change it to a 1-year term?
I'd like to make the amendment to change it to a 1-year term at a 50% exemption.
Does somebody want to second that?
I will second for discussion because I think it's a great discussion.
I will support the 1-year term, but not instantly giving them a 50% tax bill. I would like to give them time, noting full well that the next 1-year discussion would be well and truly in election time next year, which is not a great time to be discussing things like this. Anyways, go ahead, Councillor Herring.
50% is a number I threw out there. I'd be willing to entertain 75.
Councillor Sim.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about sort of different cycles, but we had, I mean, this was brought forward to the council table last August. So I feel that it's come a bit late to do it for me out of courtesy to citizens and organizations that work really, really hard. But I think, Ms. Klassen, can we not bring this, what is our deadlines for next year? Because you're right, it gets a bit difficult, but we're not bound. Like, we can do this sooner for next year, couldn't we?
Yes. I just want to keep in mind that this applicant was reminded a number of times to come to council, and it took them a long time to make it here on September 16th.
Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that.
Also, just a note, if council would like to do a percentage, we could, not a recommendation, just something to, so there's rent geared to income between 33 and 70 is 12. You take the 12 divided by 62, it's about 20%. So 80% exempted, and just bring it to the units rather than just a straight. It is done in other municipalities like that. It's the number of units versus the total units. It's up to council though.
I need help understanding that. I'm so sorry.
So if you look on page 36, there is a table that was provided by, well, the information was provided by the applicant. They have a total of 62 units. And of that, 6 units, the rent is $734, and the occupants can go to shelter aid for elderly renters to make sure that they can make that rent. 16 units of the original building, 30% of income to a max of $626 to $665, and then 8 are deep subsidy units. The most you could make is $23,000. 20 of those are low to market level. Income level is about $33,000 a year. And then the 12 there, rent geared to income can be anywhere between $33,000 to about $70,000 a year.
Basically saying that 20% of this available housing stock there is market value rentals for people that are income tested above a certain rate. So if you don't, I mean, it would be up to Evergreen to decide where they take the funding from, but if you're thinking in your head, if there's a way to only affect renters that have an income above that tested limit, doing an 80% would be the way to do it.
And to be clear, we would hope that Evergreen would go to BC Housing to meet this shortfall and not put it on the renters. But even so, this is kind of acknowledging that not all those units are deep subsidy units, and not all of them are for very low income.
Okay. We do have an amendment moved and seconded at 50% for 1 year. I'm gonna call the vote on that if there's no more discussion, so we can see if that's gonna land or if it's not gonna land. If you do not agree with that, you vote it down and we go to the next amendment. Okay? Or somebody could make a friendly amendment now.
I want to start clean, meaning I'm going to vote against it.
Okay. Oh, Councillor.
What do you mean by clean, though? I mean, if we do it again for a year, are they going to go to BC Housing and say, next year they're not going to get this exemption?
No, I just don't want to do a friendly amendment. I want a fresh.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, on the amendment, all those in favor? Okay, opposed? And that is defeated, even though you have not voted. Okay. Sorry, you want noted opposed?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barker. I just want to know who is opposed, because if you do not vote, you are to have voted in the affirmative.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that's right. Yes, so we actually had a tie on that, which hasn't happened in a long time.
Oh my
So
God.
it was opposed, myself, Councillor Fizzle, and Councillor Sim, and that fails because of a tie. If that's, I haven't done a tie in so long.
I don't know if this has happened.
So,
Dissension? And more than two of us, Bill.
okay, so back to the original motion, recommendations. Does somebody like to propose a different amendment to the recommendation? Either for 1 year, 80%, 1 year,
What I am
100%.
What I am just trying to find is where the reserves are in each of these. I'm just trying to go through. So, in the event that under the current provincial financial situation, if BC Housing says no, then it would possibly go back onto the renters. So no matter what we do, but what I do want to know is if there is a reserve. So the last thing any of us want to do is leave this organization in a difficult spot. Like, this is not the intent. So if they can't go to BC Housing, if they say no, not this year, what are their financial options? And I'm sure we can find that in their financials here.
If I may, they have,
I want to say even there was 30.
I think their reserves, if I remember correctly, are pretty low.
yeah,
But I'm sure we'll find
it
it.
depends which building, because they do all their financial statement is by building and in
Oh,
consolidated.
right, okay.
There was
And I found it interesting that the financial plan, they actually do not put the agreement amount in their financial plan. Like on page 72, it's
Yeah.
all blank. And when I asked about it, like the subsidy, it's to be determined, they haven't determined it yet. Like,
Oh, so it,
Use your mics.
for 2025, 2026, so they have must have a different year, April to March,
Okay.
as far as I understand it. And some of their homes, they do make, oh, here's a reserve fund on page 70. They have, on page 70, in total, they have $319,000
That's,
in
that's,
reserves.
that's fun. So what would not doing 50, not doing 70, what was 80% exemption be? Oh, nice. So you can tell me.
Is 44,856, and those are all the taxes. So 80% of that. That's an estimate.
Somebody wish to make a motion at 1 year 80% or 2 years 80%?
I'll make the motion for 1 year at 80%.
Okay, do I have a seconder on that? Okay, further discussion. I'm gonna still vote against it based on leaving them hanging. I want them to have 1 full year. I mean, I do realize this should motivate them, but I think this conversation we're having right now should motivate them. Councillor Bratton.
I'm just noticing that at the beginning of the year 2024, they were in the whole $9,800. So that would, maybe make a change. Is that what I'm reading? Or is that not? Page 69. All the different manors have different profit and loss year end. But
So,
So
yeah,
just
they're,
the-
yeah, those are just,
that's probably their.
those pages there, those schedule 6, that's by, with each, I'm gonna call it profit area or each
Right.
building.
Okay.
So if you're looking at total cash, which typically you would look at that, is,
Like what I want to
they
figure.
had $571,000 in cash last year, in 2024. And they're, we're not trying to analyze their statements. However, in 2024, they also have a deficiency of 8,856 on page 56. And the reason is not something I really want to get into,
Okay.
but it could mean that they had additional repairs.
Oh,
And
right.
that may or may not have been expected. I can't really say, but the number year over year in that category, or is it, no, it's not that, yeah? There was a change in their mortgage interest, 289 versus last year was only 97. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not for me to really comment on their financials, and I don't,
I mean, we're
Understand them,
we're,
but-
we're making a decision here based on
Yep.
80%. You could hash and dive. There's so many factors in financial statement that it's nearly impossible to.
There's statistics, right? There's all sorts of different things. So I think that really what's important is that we've really sparked a dialogue about realigning the exemptions. The mayor has articulated it well, is that there has to be a sunset because we cannot burden, future taxpayers. We just can't. So we have to start the conversation about realignment. If this is voted down today, I'm very happy with that. It is not intended to be punitive. I'll say that again, and allows them to maybe get into a conversation with us. So let's just move on with this one. Just make a vote.
Further comments on this amendment. 80% 1 year is the amendment proposed right now. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, 80% 1 year. And we're back at a tie.
Okay, I'm going to make a new motion. 1 year, 100% tax exemption.
And I would like to add to that staff go talk to them and explain this to them, that we're gonna start.
1 year, 1 year for the 100% tax exemption, with the request for staff to engage in conversations, to just open up the dialogues and look at different options given the vein of this conversation.
Okay. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just make a suggestion, instead of having a resolution that staff talks to them, perhaps it would be appropriate that we send them a letter saying there's a 1 year exemption. Our expectation is over this period of time that you explore the opportunity of getting more funding from BC Housing, and that that the district would also consider in our next year the percentage of market housing that you have as your overall mix. And that way it gets them ready to, so they understand the conversation which has happened. It doesn't force council into a certain direction next year. It's just saying, here's the things we thought about. We want you to think about it and get back to us next year.
So just to follow up on that, with that language that you're proposing, is that language that can also be shown to BC Housing to kind of demonstrate their need for engagement, BC Housing to look at it? Do you feel that would be enough to fuel it?
I think that the society can share that letter with
Okay.
BC Housing. We would, I don't know if we would, I don't think that would be appropriate.
All right, so amend to the motion, 1 year, 100% tax exemption.
And a letter to the society explaining.
I think that's what you're saying, just a letter to the society. Thank you.
Okay, seconder on that. Okay, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Further discussion? All those in favor? And that passes. Councillor Herring opposed? Yeah, and noted for, you hope for a lower rating as your opposition? Okay, thank you. And then also, we need to have us set this up as a council discussion at a future date. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Of course, we still need to do our readings on that bylaw.
Sorry, I have to actually read it. Okay, so much discussion there. District of Clearwater bylaw number 328, 2025, a bylaw to proceed with a permissive tax exemption for Evergreen Acres Housing and Senior Housing Society organization in accordance with section 224 of the community charter for a 1-year term.
Sorry, Mayor Blackwell, can we just move and second the first and second reading?
I think we already did we not?
We did not.
Oh, okay. Can I get a motion to move first and second reading? Moved by Councillor Bratton and McKenzie. District of Clearwater bylaw number 328, 2025, a bylaw to provide for permissive tax exemption for Evergreen Acres Senior Housing Society organization in accordance with section 224 of the community charter for a 1-year term. Whereas section 224-2A of the community charter provides for the exemption of any land or improvements that are owned or held by a charitable, philanthropic, or not-for-profit corporation, and the council considers are used for the purpose that is directly related to the purposes of the corporation. Now, therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater permissive tax exemption for Evergreen Acres Housing Society, bylaw number 328, 2025. All those in favor? And then the second motion is to read this for a third time. Recommendation. So I need a mover and seconder on that.
Moved.
Councillors McKenzie and Councillors Frizzle. District of Clearwater bylaw number 328, 2025, a bylaw to provide permissive tax exemption for Evergreen Seniors Housing Society organization in accordance with section 224 of the community charter for a 1-year term. Whereas section 224-2A of the community charter provides for the exemption of any lands or improvements that are owned or held by charitable, philanthropic, or not-for-profit corporation, and for the council considers are used for a purpose that is directly related to the purposes of the corporation. Now, therefore, the council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as a District of Clearwater permissive tax exemption, Evergreen Acres Housing Society, bylaw number 328, 2025. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Herring is opposed, as noted. Thank you for that, and yes, we do need to have a conversation about this. I think we're headed into tight times and we have to look at everything. All PTs, yeah. We have 2 letters for correspondence only. One is from Trans Mountain related to the optimization project, and then another one from BC Youth Parliament, which is a great experience if you happen to know anybody that would like to go to that. So go ahead, Councillor Frizzle.
Should we send this to the school so that they can have the opportunity to look at it and make a decision on if there's any students there that want to go to this?
I think they probably get it, but yeah.
Do they get it?
Probably worthwhile. Councillor Sim, do you know if the school gets this?
I think it's always worth sending it just in case.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion for staff to forward it. I don't think we actually need a motion on that.
No, it's fine.
Okay, thank you. We do need to go back into our workshop, but we will take it's 4:07. We'll be back here at 4:15. Thank you. Turn for now. And then after workshop, we need to go into camera. So that is the end of the regular meeting. Sorry, Annabelle. Do you have any questions or comment? No. Okay, thank you.